I have recently been watching various of the old science education programs by the marvelous communicator James Burke. He's still alive, by the way, well into his 80s. During the 1970s and 1980s, James Burke presented a number of compelling science education series, rather like Professor Brian Cox has done more recently. One of these series was called The Real Thing. In the first program, he demonstrates to us how easily our senses can fool us and be fooled in turn by our brain. We fool our senses via models of interpretation that we have built up through experience over the years. We've all had situations when we've looked at something, perhaps in the middle distance, and it looks like something which, when you get closer or look at it from a different angle, it turns out not to be. This is because we don't see the thing itself. We see the light reflecting from it, and our experience, our internal models, allow us to interpret what that thing is. Sometimes the way the light is reflecting causes our brain to use the wrong interpretive model, and therefore we think we are seeing something we are not. However, by shifting our position and looking at that object from a different place, a different perspective, we suddenly realize that what we thought we were looking at is not that thing at all. The same principle applies to our non-sensory thoughts, our views, ideas, philosophies, etc. Why do we believe what we believe? As a child, we absorb the norms of society around us. We absorb our parents' views and, so long as they seem to fit with what we see in the outside world, we take them as read, as proven, as right. And even as adults, there are many times when we believe or accept unthinkingly an idea, a concept, or something we hear on the TV or read or someone tells us without question. Yet to question is to think. Accepting or believing without questioning is unthinking. Only the constant questioning of what you and others believe to be true and why is thinking. But even that is not enough. Most of our so-called thinking or reasoning is merely finding justifications for continuing to believe what we already do. Rarely do we truly, and as objectively as possible, challenge why we believe something. Our pride doesn't let us. How many times do we listen to somebody else give a point of view and think to ourselves, that's an incredibly simplistic and one-sided, biased perspective. It sounds like a view they formed in their teens or early 20s and have simply never in any meaningful way challenged. Things change, information changes, our experience changes. And we should not only be prepared to alter our views as things change, but we should want to. We should not only be prepared to alter our views as we get older, we should see it as something that's beneficial. Yet many people, particularly in the world of politics and its adjunct activity, activism, seem to be so personally invested in views they came to many years ago that they do not want to change. Indeed, the whole idea of the possibility of changing their mind on something important fills them with dread, such that they simply refuse to do any genuine self-reflection or interrogation. Yet if you asked these people to go back in time and explain when, how, and why they came to a particular view, most of them would not be able to tell you, certainly in specific terms. For most people, it's what their parents thought, or the exact opposite of what their parents thought, or what a favourite teacher told them, or a favourite uncle, or it was the generally agreed opinion of their group of friends, etc. Now, that's all understandable in the young, but these early unthinking indoctrinations by osmosis, rather than your own research and careful multi-perspectival reasoning, are not the basis for making mature, wise judgments about anything, let alone societally important issues. And if, having come to a view, you surround yourself only with information sources and people who share the same view, it's even worse. In effect, you've created your own little ideological cult. So we simulate thinking, but often it's not real, or at least it's not as useful to us as it could be. Real thinking leads to wisdom, or so a wise man once told me. And wisdom requires two key elements. One, the willingness and ability to look at things from more than one viewpoint and to do so fairly and honestly. And two, personal intellectual humility. Humility is not allowing your pride to prevent the admission of error. Only this way lies wisdom, and beyond that, truth. Not self-serving truth, not my truth, which is simply the expression of my ideology and biases. So without both a real willingness, desire even, to look at complex situations from multiple perspectives, as opposed to taking the easy way out and picking a perspective that suits me, and without the humility to admit error, change cannot happen, and wisdom will never be attained. As a final point, please don't think that I am necessarily talking about some kind of Zen Buddhist woo, although there's much to be said for it. Neither do you need an IQ that would gain you entry to Mensa in order to display wisdom. It has long been accepted in cognitive science that it is perfectly possible to be highly intelligent and also very foolish, foolishness being the opposite of wisdom. And indeed, people with perfectly average IQs can display wisdom through basic common sense. Basic common sense is a form of wisdom. My aim as someone of average intelligence is to be more humble when considering complex societal issues and look at them honestly and fairly from more than one perspective in the hope that I can move slowly towards wiser ways, less knee-jerk, less certain, less hubristic, and less belligerent ways of thinking. And you're most welcome to join me. Thanks for listening.